we had to be very careful going in over the step. I think, I don't know if the steps rickety or we had to use, I think there was a couple of tires or something we had to use as a step to get in. And we had to be very careful going in over the step, you know. And we went in and there was a lot of cat food and stuff we were walking on as we went inside.
So cat food spilled on the floor?
On the floor, yes. Oh, there was a lot of cat food that we were walking on as we went inside.
I'm going to ask to help you where you went in the house. I'm going to bring up a map of the house, P35. So you're going into the house, the four of you. Where did you enter?
We entered through the front door.
Okay. And where did you proceed from there? Okay, so you came in the front door. So you came in this area right. Oops, I've lost my mouse. So you came in here through the front door.
Yes.
And where did you proceed from there?
We went in that little front porch area.
Mm-hmm.
And we just went to the right, in towards the living room.
In towards the living room.
Yeah.
Did you ever go in any other areas of the house?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
No.
So when you went into the living room, what did you see when you entered?
We didn't initially see, as you went in the front porch, you wouldn't have seen Mr. Dunphy because that wall was there, you know. So you had to kind of make a right turn and go in, and then he was in the chair there on your right-hand side.
Okay, and what position was he in the chair?
He was sitting, just kind of slouched. I remember his left arm being hung over the left arm of the chair, and his head was just kind of leaning back against the back of the armchair.
Okay. So what did you do when you entered the room?
It was obvious death. You could tell the gunshot wound, and I just assessed them to determine that it was obvious death.
Okay, can you just describe, I understand that you have a protocol for assessing death. Can
Yes.
you just briefly go over that for the commissioner and just explain what you would have done?
So we have, there is a protocol that we use for obvious death. We use 4 things. You listen for heart sounds, respirations, carotid pulse, and non-reactive pupils.
Okay.
Sorry, what's the last one?
Non-reactive pupils.
So while you're checking, and I understand it's the paramedic who does this checking, not the EMR.
Well, an EMR can do it, but I did it.
You did it in this case.
Yes.
Okay. What were you wearing? Were you wearing any protective clothing?
Gloves.
Gloves. Okay. Any other protective suits or booties or anything
No.
like that? So, but you were wearing sort of latex type gloves?
Yes.
Okay. And now to check the carotid pulse, that's a pulse that you feel on the neck.
That's correct.
Right?
So I put my fingers on the side of his neck closest to me, which would have been on the left-hand side.
Okay, on the left hand, his
Yes.
left-hand side.
Yeah.
And so, did you feel a pulse?
No.
Okay. And you said you checked respirations. How would you have done that?
So as I put my stethoscope on, I just laid it on the chest outside of clothing, listen for heart sounds, and at the same time I was doing that, as my hand was laid with my stethoscope, for the chest rising and falling, and there was none.
Okay, so just for the purposes of the record, you're showing that you would have placed your hand with the
Yes.
stethoscope on Mr. Dunphy's chest.
Yes.
To listen for the heart, and at the same time you would have been feeling for
Yes.
movements of respiration.
Right.
Okay, and the fourth item that you said you checked was pupil movement. Can you just tell us how is it that you
So you would
check
shine a light in the eye to check to see if the pupils moved in any way.
that? Okay, and so were Mr. Dunphy's eyes opened or closed?
They were closed. I had to open. I don't know if they were open a little bit or if they weren't open, but I know I did have to lift the eyelid to see.
And then you have a light that you shine
Yes.
in there. Is that the idea?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And did you get any pupil movement?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So all those tests turned out negative. Did you see any visible signs of injury on Mr. Dunphy's body?
Oh, yes, I did, yes.
Okay, just briefly, what were those?
So there was a huge hole right here in the center of his forehead. There was also a trail of blood coming from his left ear.
Okay.
And other than that, I didn't look inside his clothing or anything like that. I didn't move his body whatsoever. And when I placed my stethoscope, I placed it outside his clothing, just right here. I didn't move any of his clothing whatsoever.
Okay. Did you see any weapons in the room?
Yes, I did.
What did you see?
I saw a rifle
Okay.
on the floor.
Okay, can you just describe what position it was in, where it was?
It was by his chair, the chair that he was sitting in, and I had to step over it, or I remember having to step over it when I went to assess him. And I can't remember exactly if while I was assessing him it was between my legs, but I do remember that I had to step over it. So I don't know if I stepped over it on the way to assess him or while I was assessing him. But I do remember that I did have to step over it.
Okay. Do you remember how it was lying? What orientation it was in? Was it laying against anything? How do you remember it?
I think it was laid either against the chair or his foot. And I can't recall, because I didn't take a lot of notice of it. But it was either laid against, you know how the little skirt comes out on the bottom of the sofa, the chair, that if it was laid up against the edge of that or if it was against his foot or something. It was tipped up a little tiny bit, so that, but I didn't have to lift. But I remember having to step over it.
Okay. And did you take any notes or anything on that day as to?
No, I just wrote on my glove, no respirations, no heart. I just wrote that on my glove.
Okay, so you wrote those jot notes on your glove, and that had to do with your death protocol
Yes,
check
that's
only.
right.
Okay. Do you recall any other weapons in the room?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. And the gun, what type of gun was it? Do you recall?
It had like a bolt thing, that you would have to, bolt action something or other, that you would have to haul on. I know that.
Okay. All right. Do you recall any other details of the living room?
Not a lot. We weren't in there for very long. 5 minutes maybe. So, and my purpose in being there was to assess Mr. Dunphy. And that was my main reason for being in the room. And initially when I went in there, I didn't know what had transpired. And when I saw Mr. Dunphy and I saw the gun, I thought he had done this to himself. That was my initial, and I even said that to the two RCMP officers, and when I made it, they didn't make no response to it. So, and had I maybe known what had transpired, maybe I would have looked around and I would have made mental notes of something, but I didn't know at that time what had transpired.
Your first impression was that it was a suicide when you went into the room with really no knowledge?
Yes. So I went there to assess Mr. Dunphy. I did that, and we exited the room the same way we went in there. And I didn't really, I can remember when I made my statement to the RCMP a few days later, they had asked me, was there a TV in the room? I couldn't even remember if there was a TV, because obviously my back was to it and I didn't remember seeing it. Okay. There were a few things. I remember there was some garbage being around and things like that, but, right.
Do you remember anything about the smell of the house, anything standing out in your mind?
No, I remember, the cat food I remember, because I remember having to walk on it, and I remember, there's, he must have been feeding a lot of cats, because there was a lot of cats, cat food,
Did you see any cats while you were inside the house?
No cats inside the house, no.
Did you see any cats when you were outside the house?
Yes, yeah. There were cats outside, but none inside.
While you were there with Mr. Bishop and the two RCMP officers, did anyone else enter the house for that
No.
5 minutes that you were there? No? And I'm just going to actually ask Madam Clerk to bring up P35 again. I just want to get a sense of where everyone was standing while you were doing your checking of Mr. Dunphy. So can you just tell me, looking at this diagram, where would you have been standing approximately, Ms. Linehan, when you were doing your work?
I would have been standing probably by the corner of, bed right there.
Okay, by the front left-hand corner of Mr. Dunphy's
Somewhere
armchair.
around that area, yes.
Okay. Did you go any further into the room than that at any time?
No.
And where were the other three men who were with you? Where were they standing?
Kevin was standing back by the very corner of where you enter the room, almost by the archway type.
So this side?
No, by the chair.
Around here, okay.
Yeah.
So on
right by the wall.
Okay, close to the wall there on the right-hand side of the door as you're entering the room, or the opening as you're entering the room. Do you recall there being anything down around Mr. Bishop's feet?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay, and where were the two police officers standing?
I don't remember. I know one of them was definitely still in the hallway because I can remember speaking, and when I looked, he was there. Where the other fellow was, I really don't know.
Did anyone go further into the living room, like right into the sort of the heart of the living room? Was everyone?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. Okay. Did you see? I know you said you touched Mr. Dunphy's body. Did you touch anything else other than what you've already described to us?
No.
Did you see anybody else touch anything while you were in there?
No.
Do you recall if Mr. Bishop was also wearing gloves?
Yes.
Okay, and so he was. What about the two RCMP officers? Do you have any recall?
I don't recall if they were or not.
Okay, I'm going to show you, Ms. Linehan, a couple of photographs. These are confidential exhibits, Commissioner, so I'll ask that the monitors be turned off. But I'm just going to show you photographs that were captured. They were captured after you were there, and I just want you to look at them and see if there's anything there that you recall as being different from what you saw or not. So I'd ask to see C1 photo 40, please. And that's going to come up, Ms. Linehan, on your monitor. Can you see it there?
Yes.
Okay. So looking at that, do you see anything there that stands out for you as being different from what you saw that day? And if so, please identify it for the Commissioner.
I don't recall that the blue tub that the gun is sitting on there now.
Okay.
I don't recall that being in the room.
Okay.
That's the blue one you're talking about?
The Rubbermaid looking tub that's there.
Okay, that the gun is laying against?
Yes.
All right. What about the position of Mr. Dunphy's arms? Any difference there?
That's down by his side right now. And I can't say for 100% sure, but when we entered, Mr. Dunphy's arm was hanging over the chair, the side of the chair.
Which arm?
His left arm.
Thank you.
Okay, so you recall his left arm hanging over the side of the chair.
Yes.
Did you note down any of your observations at that time?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I remember having to step over. I remember having to step over the gun when I went in. And I didn't remember not having to lift my leg very high to step over it. I do remember that, and for me to have to lift my leg over that tub, that's going to be.
I'm going to show you the gun from another perspective in a moment. Before I leave this photograph, though, anything else there that you notice being different from your memory?
The heater, a fan heater or something is there. Yeah. I don't recall that either.
Okay.
And that's pretty close to the chair as well. So that kind of would have been pretty close to us as we went in there to do the assessment. No, I don't. And like I say, maybe it could have been there and I didn't see it when I walked in, but I don't recall seeing it.
Okay. All right. Are you finished with that photograph then?
Yes.
Okay, as another confidential exhibit coming up, C1, photograph 96. So, Ms. Linehan, is that up on your screen there now?
Yes, it is.
So this is a photograph that's taken more of the view that you would have seen, you know, from the perspective that you were approaching Mr. Dunphy to do your work. Anything there that is different from how you remember it?
And again, the blue top
Okay.
and the positioning of the gun. Like I said, I did have to step over the gun when I went in, no doubt. And where it's positioned right now, I would be able to assess Mr. Dunphy without even having to be near the gun. And I do remember having to step over it.
Does the gun look like the same gun other than its position?
It does, yes.
And again, we see the heater in this photograph. Does that?
And it looks pretty close to his chair. And I didn't walk around that heater when I went in. And right there, like I'd have to walk between the heater and the chair. I don't recall doing that.
Okay. And again, we see the position of Mr. Dunphy's arm. Left arm is now inside the chair, and again, that's inconsistent with what your memory is.
Yes, I can remember it hanging out over the side of the chair.
All right, so after you finished assessing Mr. Dunphy, did you leave the house then immediately?
We did.
And did all four of you leave together as a group?
From what I can remember.
Okay.
Kevin and I left through the door first, I do know that. If the two officers left directly behind us, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. And what did you do next?
We went outside and I think I went to the ambulance to do some paperwork and what I had done inside.
Okay, we're going to look at your paperwork before we finish.
Okay. And I think, I can't really remember how it transpired, but I don't know, somebody said that I was to assess, I should assess Constable Smythe. And so I did that, but that was just shortly after that.
Shortly after?
After we came out of the house.
Shortly after you came out. Now, at that point, did you have any knowledge of who Constable Smythe was or what his role in?
Yes, I found out just shortly after we left the house what had happened.
Okay, so
and I can't remember who told me. I have no idea. I'm guessing it was one of the officers probably, and we came out and I really don't know who told me.
Okay, but what did that person tell you?
That he was the one who had shot Mr. Dunphy.
Okay, and did you understand him to be a police officer?
Yes, well I knew because I had seen when we came out, when he was in the driveway.
Okay.
And I knew he was a police officer.
Because of his holster, you
Yes.
said earlier. Do you remember if there was a weapon in the holster?
No, I can't remember.
Okay. All right, so did you do an assessment of Constable Smythe?
Yes, I did.
And where did you do that?
In the back of the ambulance.
Can you just explain to the commissioner what you would have done as
I
part of your
just checked his vitals.
Okay, and when you check vitals, what are the vitals you check?
I checked his blood pressure, his heart rate, and his oxygen level.
Okay.
Sorry, what was the last one?
His oxygen level.
How did Constable Smythe appear to you? What was his demeanor? What was he like when you're doing this?
He was okay. He spoke when I asked him his name and date of birth and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't have a big lot of conversation or anything, you know.
Okay. Anything else that you can remember about his appearance or demeanor?
No, all I knew when he was in the driveway, he looked really, really cold.
Okay.
And that, you know, and he wasn't wearing much, and it was really cold that day, and he wasn't wearing much warm clothes or anything. And
Did he have on a hat?
no.
You have on gloves?
No.
Okay. All right.